if the Niners fire Nick Sorensen, and it's looking like they're sort of probably going to do that, would they be unfairly scapegoating him? I mean, he really didn't do well the last few weeks, but he didn't have Greenlaw. He didn't have Hargrave. Travarius Ward was a shell of himself this year for obvious reasons. There's probably somewhat. Hufanga played like 4 games. So there were some mitigating circumstances that Steve Wilkes didn't have to deal with. And yet his defense gave up like 13 yards per game more than Wilkes's. Clearly, it seems like these last few games have hurt his stock in the organization. Is that fair? What do you think?
Well, life ain't fair. I mean, first of all, I can make a very compelling argument. He didn't deserve the job to begin with. He's never been a defensive coordinator in the NFL. All of a sudden, he's going to walk in and be the 49ers defensive coordinator in the middle of a year where they're expecting to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's, and your counterparts are guys like, Steve Spagnuolo. He doesn't have, and I'll say this. I got so sick and tired of listening to Mike Singletary say, I got to look at the film. It was like a coverall. And after a while, you start rolling your eyes. Like you have no idea what you just watched. You have no idea. You're a commercial football coach only. And then I'm looking at Sorensen in the last month. It's like every tough question that I asked him, that you asked him, that almost anybody asked him, he just look at us and be like, it's on me. Communication breakdown. Okay, well, sorry. I need more than that. You can't hide with communication breakdown. I know it was a communication breakdown. The question is, why do you keep having communication breakdowns? And yeah, did he have the awesome defense? No, the defense has regressed, and a lot of the problems on defense, Grant, we both know are personnel related. They need better linemen. They need better defensive tackles. They need a better linebacking core. They had a great line. Now they have Bosa. They had great linebackers. Now they have Warner. It's like they've lost a lot of their quality depth. But
he lost Armstead. He lost Hargrave. He lost Greenlaw.
Yeah,
that's a big part of your front seven.
I'm not seeing tons of development. I'm not loving a lot of the answers that we get. As far as I don't know that he has any answers. And then when we've just watched a 6-game stretch since the bye week in which the 49ers got no sacks in 4 of the 6 games and yet blitzed like the least percentage of any team in pro football. So if you're just going to line up in a wide 9, and then if you're not going to get pressure, you don't have any games to play. There's no stunting. There's no movement. There's no blitzing. I'm sorry. I need more than that. I need adjustments. I'm not saying that he needed to make it right, but he didn't. I didn't see how he reacted to not getting it done with his front 4. He didn't have any reaction. There wasn't like creative blitz packages. And then when I heard Tim Ryan tell Greg Papa 3 weeks ago, yeah, the Niners aren't good at blitzing because they don't do it a lot. Well, I mean, so now you're building up an excuse of why you can't blitz. And then we all know you don't want to blitz. But the bottom line is the blitz has got to be a part of your defensive plan if you can't get pressure. And they didn't get pressure and they didn't blitz and they didn't win. And they got gutted at the end of the year.
Here's what perplexes me though. Sorensen and his defense did so well against the Rams in that gotta have it game. And Greenlaw, that was the one half where he looked like the Greenlaw of old, and it made such a difference. And that defense was flying around, and it was fast, and it was violent, and it looked like the Niners defense. And I think everyone gave credit to Sorensen after that game. Like, you know what? He's a rookie. It took Saleh a minute. It took D'Amico a minute. Let's not be hasty. And then they get eliminated from the playoffs and kind of sleepwalk through the final 3 games. And he's held responsible for that, not the head coach. I mean, doesn't Shanahan have to wear that a little bit too? That's your defense too. You're the head coach.
First of all, Shanahan wears all of it because he's the head coach. He hired all these guys, so there is no decision.
That's the other thing I wanted to ask. Like, of all the bad things Shanahan did this year, was promoting Sorensen the worst one?
Well, I mean, to me, trying to like eliminate competition across the board. You have Brock Purdy, but you don't have a competitive quarterback situation there. You have a line, but you had such a pecking order that you never Like there was nothing that anybody could ever do to move Jake Brendel out of being the starting center. And it's like, but he wasn't getting the job done. So I just want to see more talent, more competition across the board. I think it's a fair question. I mean, Shanahan does need to take responsibility for how unexplosive his offense has been this year. But I think it's also more
like he set up this defensive, because when he fired Wilkes, people were like, okay, fair enough, he wasn't perfect. And then he promotes Sorensen and hires Staley. I think a lot of people are like, okay, I mean, if Kyle wants to do it, I'm open-minded, but it seems like a terrible idea. And it was a terrible idea.
And it didn't work. I mean,
no.
Staley left the Chargers, where the Chargers became the number one scoring defense in pro football with his players. Without him. And they were nowhere
near. And a complete rookie. I mean, Jesse Minter's like 36 years old, who came from college. Yeah.
A college coordinator took over your defense and got way, way, way more out of it than you got. You went to San Francisco. I don't know what he did. I have no idea what he did. I've tried to inquire.
He runs the ball meeting, and now they don't take the ball away anymore. Damn.
Yeah, they don't take the ball away. But I think Sorensen, I don't think it's scapegoating him. It's a cold business. You either get it done or you don't. They didn't get it done. If you said to me, what do I predict? I predict they'll fire Schneider and make Sorensen the special teams coordinator. I think Sorensen, because they like Sorensen as a guy, I think he's a solid football coach, but I think they know that he's in over his skis as a coordinator, as a defensive coordinator. I think they'll make him the special teams coordinator, and they'll go get a defensive coordinator.
Who is your official prediction for the next defensive coordinator, assuming Sorensen gets fired?
I would say Ulbrich, because he'll be available. I think they asked to speak to him last year. They were denied by Robert Saleh. I think they would like to have Robert Saleh, but I think Robert Saleh probably doesn't want to come back here. And I don't know why, but that would be my guess. And so he chose Green Bay. I mean, it's the winter time. You chose to go live in Green Bay as opposed to the Bay Area. You got to think that he's got some kind of issue with Shanahan. That he doesn't want to work for Shanahan anymore, and he does want to work for LaFleur. So I would say Ulbrich. Ulbrich makes a lot of sense. He's, seems like the Yorks, Denise and John, like guys who have ties to the organization. He obviously does. That's why they like Vic Fangio. And they know Ulbrich from his days with the Niners. I think that will be very popular.
I have another prediction. Not Ulbrich. I do acknowledge that Ulbrich has to be the odds-on favorite, but a dark horse candidate who I think will get interviewed, but I don't know, hasn't been reported yet.
Internal?
Ken Norton Jr.
Wow.
Ken Norton Jr. Think about it.
That would be a huge mistake.
Think about it. Maybe. But, I mean, he was the linebacker coach in Seattle when Robert Saleh was quality control. I mean, he kind of mentored Robert Saleh. He knows the scheme. Players play for him. He played for the 49ers. He was their middle linebacker when they won the Super Bowl in 1994 when Mike Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. A lot of the things that Jeff Ulbrich has going for him, Ken Norton has going for him. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I just don't know how good Jeff Ulbrich is, because I know Robert Saleh's good, and I haven't seen enough of Ulbrich without Saleh, but those two.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. The only name that I would advocate for as far as coaches is the Niners are really, really bad on special teams. They were really bad on special teams under Richard Hightower. They've been really bad on special teams under multiple coordinators. Notre Dame has a guy named Biaggi who is just a dominating special teams coach, and they are not one of the best teams in college football, and yet they're in the national semi against Penn State. They're going to beat Penn State. They're going to wind up in the national championship game. And it's because they've got the best special teams unit in the country. And this guy coaches DBs and special teams. And that's the guy that Marty Biaggi is the guy that I would hire as the special teams coach. But I don't want to
take any chances. Larry's out here scouting special teams coaches in college. You got to respect that.
Well, I mean, but I'll say this, though.
Only Larry would have an answer. Like, hey, Larry, who do you think the Niners special teams coach? Boom! I got Marty 3 names right now. Only Larry could do that. You got to respect that.
No, but I was going to say, I don't think it's time for guys who haven't done it before as the defensive coordinator. I think it's time to go get somebody. I mean,
Agree.
Fangio would have been ideal. I think they made the
Another
mistake
reason
last
why
year.
I feel like Ulbrich and Ken Norton will be looked at. Like, these are guys who are very experienced and they've been running the scheme that Sorensen was trying to run this year.
Right. I mean, I know they love the wide nine. I know they love Chris Kasarik, and he seems to love the wide nine. But they are uniquely positioned here. That because they don't have a lot of defensive linemen under contract long term. They don't have a bunch of defensive linemen they've invested in. They could switch out their front. I mean, a couple of years ago would have been more difficult than it is now. But I would rather not have a linebacker coach. I'd rather either have a secondary coach or a D-line coach, and preferably a secondary coach, especially in this era where everything's about your coverage and your all the different zones, and coverage is huge. I think I'd like to have a special team.
I think
I'd like
the
to have
Niners want a linebacker
coach
to be the defensive coordinator. The last two defensive coordinators they had were DB coaches, and I think the Niners are really good in coverage, but I think they're again, like you said, like their blitz package is non-existent, and I think you could get more of that from a linebacker coach than from a DB coach.